Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Spindle TV. I'm Laney Shaughnessy, for those of you that might be new and joining us and everything. And tonight we are going to finish up a project that we didn't get quite finished with last week, our cribbage board. We laid out the body work for the construction and the assembly of basically the base, if you will, the base and kind of like a little box type base, but we never got to finish the top or layout or the toolpaths and things for that. So we're going to do that, and we're going to discuss some options in that layout and everything when we get started in just a little bit. In the meantime, we've got I popped in a little bit early. I saw some folks come in, so want to say hi to Harvey, Ronnie, and Roger. How you guys doing? And we're going to and Crystal and X3 CNC. Hello. But I figured if y'all had any questions or anything before we got started, now would be the time. And if you're watching on YouTube, down at the bottom of your YouTube screen, of the window screen, click that little gear icon and turn the quality up to 1080p or whatever your system permits, and that way when we are looking at the software, it'll be clear for you and not blurred or blurry and stuff. All right, cool, very good. Hey, we got a few more people popping in, Ron and Kevin and Michael. And so turn that quality up and see if that helps with your view and stuff. Cool. All right. Now, the files that I told you guys last week, as far as those game files and all, in this video, I'm gonna make those files available in the description after the class. Give me about 30 minutes or so to organize things, and you'll be able to find all the game files, the aggravation board, and all that stuff in this video. Some of you were looking for it in the last video. I wanted to wait till we got this project done so I could include this project in that zip file, in that download. And so all the files, there'll be a download link in the description of this class where you can find the files to download. I would say, give me a little bit once class is over to get things organized and uploaded. You could probably check back on this video tomorrow. They'll be there, or late this evening, and we'll have them there for you and stuff. I'll have them there for you. So very cool. All right, well, for those of you just joining, welcome. I want to thank you for coming back and sitting with me through this. We're going to try not to make it a long, late night, but I want to talk to you about some things, options on layout and stuff like that in this cribbage board. We're going to finish up the project we didn't finish last week, and we're going to do the raceway. We're going to talk about that and laying that out, and then we're going to look at different options on how that raceway would get created. And just, again, it may not be the project you're interested in, but the approach, right, to the technique or the procedures or what have you, the steps we took to get there, it may help you. Those steps may help you in one of your projects and things. And we'll go through, and we're going to kind of recap the whole project as far as the base that's going to be having the sliding doors and everything. When we left off last week, there was a couple of comments. One of the comments was the way I had my finger holes is not going to be very good for gripping those doors to open and close them. They should slide pretty easy. They shouldn't be too tough. On the picture that I showed you guys and girls last week, that if y'all were with me, the photo example, kind of the muse to this project, had the kind of like the door handles, if you will, for the sliding doors on the outside, so they could slide in and out. I have mine turned inward so that we could do some kind of design on that, maybe like a little V-carve of some initials or something. And someone kind of pointed out that, hey, that the finger holes aren't in the right spot. They might not be easy to open and stuff. And so we'll look at that again when we get closer and stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and, like I said, if you're watching on YouTube, click that little gear icon at the bottom of the video. Also click that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. Click that little gear icon, turn your quality up. That way when we're in the software, it'll be a clearer view for you. Turn it up to like a 1080p or something like that. All right, let's go ahead and switch on over to camera 3. And let's get me in here in the view. And let's see if we can bring me down. Let's throw me over on this side for right now. All right, you see me looking over my shoulder there. I've got a monitor here. I need to kind of create that monitor somewhere so I'm looking forward when I'm looking at it and can see what my view is. Maybe a little screen down below here on my setup, but it's kind of over to the side just to make sure everything's there. All right, so now we've kind of in this, it looks like we've jumped ahead, right? And we've got this thing laid out, and you're like, wait a minute, how'd you even lay it out? That's what we're here to learn, how to do it. I'm just, I created this layout to kind of show an example of kind of where we're heading, but we're going to create it from scratch. We're going to create it from scratch, and I'm going to show you some different ways to lay out the raceway and the holes and things. All right. So we didn't start early. We're starting now, Mike. I jumped in about 7:08 p.m. Just to do some talking. I like to talk a lot, so I figured I'd get some of that out of the way before we actually started class. So, we're just now getting started. So we're just now starting. All right, let's take a look at what I've got here. So in the design, I've got some holes laid out here. I've got 2 sets. I've got a single set of 3. If we zoom in here, I got a single set of 3, and then I've got kind of a grouped set of 5. Because normally with a cribbage board, you have, a play of 5, and then, a score line or space, and then another 5 and another 5 and another 5. Now on a cribbage board, a standard or traditional cribbage board is going to have 60 holes. And, you play to 120. Some people can play a half game to the 60. But typically you would play on the raceway, you would play to the end and then back again for a total of 120 holes. Or if you want to do continuous play, then you're going to have 120 rows of holes for your pegs and everything for a total continuation. I like the continuation of the 120. It just depends really on the size of the cribbage board. But sometimes when you have the 60 holes and you're going up and back, you might forget which way you're going sometimes, depending on the conversations and the chaos and the gabbing back and forth. You might forget which way you're going, and you'll be going backwards when you're supposed to be going back towards the other direction. So it could be a little bit confusing with the 60. So I like the continuous play, start to finish, and that's what we have here. So the reason why I have 2 sets of holes, and we're gonna lay all this out again, but I wanted to kind of show you the direction we're going on the top of this cribbage board here. And let's go ahead and turn these layers off for the moment. And let's look at a raceway. And I'm going to change the layer color. I had it red for the time being, but I'm going to change it to black so everybody can kind of see it pretty well. And this is basically the raw raceway here without any holes or anything in it. And so I want to show you the layout of this raceway. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer here. And I'm just going to call this, my fresh start layer, right? Let's go in here and call this my fresh start, right? And I'm going to take this line and this line for the moment, and I'm going to copy it over to that fresh start layer. And I'm going to turn off this layer for a minute. All right. So the first thing that I did is, depending on the size of my cribbage board, I laid out a rectangle. So let's lay out a rectangle here. And on the rectangle that I laid out here, and let's actually back that up to there, and let's pull it to there. By the way, when you're sizing things, you may not know it or not, but when you go into transform mode and you grab one of these, side icons, let's say you're stretching or what have you, your mouse doesn't have to stay at that center point. You can drag your mouse down, and I can actually drag my mouse down to the line here and snap that rectangle to that part. Or if let's say I had another area out here or something, and I wanted to size this box to, the edge of this box, I can come over here and I can snap to the corner of that to bring that to the edge, or, snap to the corner of this. So I can bring my mouse, even though I'm grabbing this, as long as I hold down my left mouse button, the software knows that I've got a hold of this thing, and, I can snap to an end of a line or something, and I have smart snapping turned on. Always have smart snapping and geometry up here in your view bar turned on. That's good to have. All right. Now, once I created the rectangle, I had to create some curves, right? And so what I did is I went into node editing mode, and on this line here, I put your mouse right on the line, right click and change it to an arc, and just let it go to its natural arc. From there, getting out of node editing mode, I took that line or that rectangle, double clicked on it to put it in transform mode, and if I hold the control key, I'm going to make a copy as I drag this up and snap this to here. And then what I ended up doing is mirroring this, flipping this piece. So let's go into the mirror tool over here under transform objects, and I'm just going to flip it about the job center. So now I'm kind of creating that loop around and stuff. And on here, on this one, I want to take this one, and I'm going to use my left arrow key on my keyboard. I'm going to kind of just bring it down to where the end of this arc, which is kind of here. Let's go into node editing so you can see. This is kind of the end of the arc right here. I'm just using my left arrow key. Let's get back into selection mode here. And I'm bringing that arc down to where it will connect. And I've got a little bit further to go. There we go. And so now I have kind of this raceway here. Now I have these two other lines here that I want to get rid of. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'm just going to move those two lines. Remember those two lines I copied earlier? I just used those for reference so I knew how big to draw my rectangle. But you're going to size your rectangle up to what best kind of looks good on the board and what fits, and for this size board, the size board that we're working with is 18 inches in length by 6.5 inches wide. And, for this size of the board, the raceway, I kind of liked the way this looked. And then from here, we're just going to go in to do some node editing. And at this end, we're going to put our mouse on the line on this end here and right click and delete that span to get rid of that line. And on this end, we're going to right click and delete the span. Let's go back into node editing and delete the span on this side. Now, I'm also going to delete this span right here, right click and delete that span, because the other rectangle line was below it, right? This one, and so by deleting it, it got rid of it. And now I can, select these two objects and go into my join tool, and notice that it's not letting me join. It's not letting me join my ends together and all that stuff. And that's because I need to, come in here and if we look, if I move this outward a little bit, you can see the end of my arc is here, right? And so I needed to, I had a little bit of an overlap. So I'm going to bring this back to here, and now I should have one continuous vector, right? So I had to, kind of move it over and get that overlap and everything laid out. Now, once I've got this laid out, then I'm going to center it. I'm going to select the whole thing and center it on my material. So I'm going to close out of the join tool and go to the alignment tool, and I'm going to align center, the middle button here, on my board. Okay. All right, cool. So that's my raceway. All right. Now, I'm going to do a 3-player game, right? You could have a 2-player, 3-player, 4-player. 4 is kind of the max. So you're going to either have, a raceway with 2 holes, 3 holes, or 4 holes, right? And I'm going to have a raceway of 3 holes. I'm going to have a 3-player cribbage board here. And it just depends on how many players you want, right? So on here, I need to draw my circles. So my circles, they're going to be an 1/8 inch diameter, because those the little pegs, the little cribbage board pegs, they're going to be an 1/8 inch. They'll fit into an 1/8 inch diameter hole. So I'm going to go 0.125 and create that. Now, I want some spacing on these holes that are going to follow this raceway. And what I found is a rectangle that is with square corners, that is has a width of 1/8 of an inch by 1 1/4, 1.25. This would provide the perfect spacing for me for a 3-player game. 1 1/2 for a 4-player game, 1 inch for a 2-player game. Okay, a spacing and all. So I'm going to select this circle now, double click on it and put it in transform mode. And if I hold that control key down, I can drag down 2 additional circles while I'm holding the control key. So when I grab this and drag it out, I'm actually dragging out a copy. If I'm not holding the control key, then I'm just moving that circle around, right? So we only want 3 of these. And if I select these 3 guys here, and then I select the rectangle last, that last item is going to be the alignment object, the object that I want to align to in my selection, that last selection. So if I go into my alignment tool, I can align to selection, the last item in that selection. And on the selection here, I'm going to align to the center, and it's going to stack all 3 of those circles in the center. And then I'm going to space that selection vertically up and down, because that's how my rectangle is drawn. And when you're drawing these 3 circles, draw them vertically. Do not draw them out horizontally. Draw them vertically. That way, when we tell it to follow the path, it'll follow the path correctly, which you'll see here coming up in just a few minutes. All right, so now that I have those 3 spaced the way that I want, I can go ahead and delete that rectangle, and that'll give me some nice spacing on those 3 objects. Right? Just a little quick, simple little trick there. I'm going to group those 3 objects together as one. And if we were to come back to our full board here and everything, if I selected those 3 objects and then I selected my raceway, I could use the copy along vectors tool, which will take the first selected vector and copy it along the second selected vector. So my group of the 3 circles, because they're grouped, the software treats it as one object. And then my raceway is one object. So I'll select the circles first and then the raceway. And when I come in here, I can choose, how many circles I want to follow. Now, we know that on a continuous raceway, it's 120 circles. But we want to create some spacing between those every 5, We want to kind of create a little bit of like a set of 5, space, set of 5, space, set of 5. And if I just went 120 here, and I copied those circles along that path, then I'm not really able to kind of group or break up the spacing of the 5 that I want. I need to add some additional rows to that. And so I could, play kind of a guessing game where, I say, okay, I'm going to do 140, and then that'll give me 20 different areas that I can kind of remove, some for a group. And then I could go through and, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then take the next 5 here. Oops, I need one more row. Hold that shift key and select that as just on them. And delete them, right? And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take the next 5, delete them, and I can do that. But that's quite a big spacing, right? And I didn't, by doing 5, clip, 5, clip, 5, clip, I'm creating kind of a big spacing. And also 140, I only gave myself 20, so I could only do that like 4 times, right? And I got to do it more than 4 times. So it could be, for every 5 you remove 2, right? And then the next 5 you remove 2, that kind of thing. And that's not 5, that's 4 there, but you guys get the idea. And we can create our spacing that way, but you just got to imagine, okay, how many groups of 2 do I have to delete so that I do end up with 120 circles overall? And sometimes that could be tedious, especially if you have, a pretty intricate cribbage board, or, a pretty good size cribbage board, right? And things like that. It could be kind of tedious. So I'm going to show you a way that will allow us to create spacing and also give us the right amount of number that we need. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, now that I have these kind of just thrown on here, I'm going to actually grab this group of 5, because that's kind of the spacing, that I want in between these and everything. And I'm going to, between the holes, I'm going to grab those and I'm going to drag them down here, and I'm going to group that group of 5 together, right? So now the software will treat that as one object, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and let's go back in here. Let's delete all these other circles, right? Okay, so now I have a group of 3 and I have a group of 5 here. And I'll throw these, all right, let's move these up a little bit. Try to stay on the whiteboard tonight. Let's pull these up here for now. Now, what I figured is, on my straightaway, I have this corner here, and if I tried to take my group of 5 and, 5 times 24, right? So if we have a calculator right here, 24 times 5, my groups of 5, that gives me that 120 circles, right? And I said, okay, I got this group of 5, so let me just take that group of 5, come in here on this circular array tool and do 24 copies of it and create that, right? That gives me that spacing and everything. Well, the only thing is that group of 5 is, that original group of 5 is very rigid. There's no curve or anything in it. And so when it goes to turn the corners, we don't get a nice smooth transition around those corners. So not quite ideal. I want my center hole to follow the contour of this line here, right? So that's not, that's not the approach that we're going to take. So here's the approach that I'm going to take. I'm going to take and go into, select my racetrack here, my raceway, and I'm going to go into node editing. Now, before I go into node editing and cut this up a little bit, I want to make some copies. I like to do little V-groove lines between my holes to kind of like create like a little divider of like little racetrack lanes and everything. So I'm going to, create some lanes here. But before I do that, I need to really know what my spacing is, between, what is the center spacing between these 3 holes? What's that center's point? It's 0.3437. But let me show you how I get that. I'm going to go into the dimension tool, And I'm going to measure from the center of this circle to the center of this circle. And I'm going to, 0.3437 is from center to center is the circle center to center. Now, if I divide that number by 2, that gives me the center between the actual two circles, right? So that's my magic number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this line here, my little racetrack, and I'm going to go into the offset tool, and I'm going to offset it in both directions, that 0.3437, and I'm going to divide that by 2, and if I hit the equal sign, that'll give me my 0.17185. And now I can offset those lines. And of course, when you do that, you see all that stuff jump up? Make sure that you are in the right layer. You're working in the layer. And I want to be working in my fresh start layer here. I want to make sure that that's the active layer that I'm working in. When I create that offset, I make sure that's bold, right? I want to see fresh start here because that's the layer I'm actually on. What I did was I had layer 1, my other layer, active, and when I clicked offset, it threw all those things, those 2 lines on that other layer, and it turned that layer on, and all that other stuff popped up. It's like, whoa, what is all that? So make sure the layer you're working in is active. You should be able to see it here at the top of the screen, and it should be highlighted in bold black letters, right? So let's do that one more time. Let's go ahead and offset that in both directions, and that's going to create my 3 lanes. The middle line will get deleted at some point, or that layer will get turned off for that middle line, and then I'll have a space between my 2 holes. So to give you an example, if I took this object here and this, and I go into my follow tool, I'm just going to create 24, let's go 120 copies just for a second. And you can see that my 2 lines here are going to, when I do a little V groove there, it's going to kind of create the individual lanes, like the individual runway and stuff. All right, let's undo that. Okay, so now I have my little raceway. Now I can go into node editing and do what I want to do. So in node editing on my raceway here, okay, in node editing on my raceway, oops. Let's go put that back there. In node editing on my raceway, it shows me where the start and the end of my curves are, right? It shows me where the start of my line is, where that straight line ends, and then it goes into the arc, and then where this straight line goes into the arc. And what I want to do is I want to cut these arcs loose of the straight lines. So I'm going to go into node editing, and I'm going to right click and cut the vector. On this one here, I'm going to right click and cut the vector. Over here, put my mouse right on there and right click and cut that vector and cut that vector. And what I've done is now I've separated my 2 arcs from my straight lines. Okay? Hopefully you guys are with me. All right? Yep. And 1, 2, 3, 4. You're absolutely right. Thank you. Hold on. Who said that for me? Wayne. Thanks for letting me know I had 4 instead of 5 there. Very important. I had wasted a whole lot of time trying to figure out what went wrong. So let's go ahead and let me take a measurement here, and I'm going to measure horizontally from the center of this circle to the center of this one. 0.354. Okay, let's take this guy here. I'm going to hold down my control key, and I'm going to drag a copy and snap it right here. Let's get these numbers out of there. 0.354, that's my distance. Let me grab that row of circles and snap it there. Okay, and then I'm just going to move that copy, move it relative to its distance that it is now on the x-axis, 0.354. We'll move that there. That'll give me my other row of my 5. And now I'm going to take this group, I'll ungroup it, and then I'll just select all these and regroup it. There we go again. Bam, right? Did it again. I don't know why I ended up back on layer 1. Well, let's turn that layer 1 off. Go back into that fresh start. And these circles here, let's make sure that they are on my fresh start row here. There we go. And we'll group it together. Okay, so now I have my group of 5. All right, let's ungroup that for a second. Evidently, my other circles, I didn't hold my control key down well enough. So let me hold the control key down this time and drag my other 3 up there. We need those 3. Okay, so now I'm good to go. All right, thanks for pointing that out to me, Wayne. I appreciate that. That's going to save me a lot of headache, right? All right, so now I have basically 3 straight lines, 2 arcs on this raceway, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle. And on this rectangle, let me delete that. Let me zoom out where we can all see what's going on here. I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to snap to the end of this middle line, and I'm going to snap to that node that I cut. Okay. And I'm just going to draw this rectangle here. The size really doesn't matter, but what's important is that once I draw it, I want to snap it to the center line, right? I want the center of my rectangle being aligned center on that line there. Okay. I'm going to hold down the control key. I'm going to grab it right in the middle, hold the control key, and I'm going to snap it to the center of this line, and I'm going to hold the control key again and snap it to the center of that line, right? So that gives me these 3 boxes, if you will. Okay. And now, how many sets of 5 do I need in here to get my 120? Well, you know, 7 sets of 5, that'll give me 105 holes, right? I'm 15 short, right? You know, 8 sets of 5 will, you know, put me a little closer, but not quite. Because it'll get me right at, you know, 8 times 3 is 24. 24 times 5 is 120, right? So I'd have 120 holes if I used 8 in here on each one, but now my corners are empty. I don't have anything in there for those curves and stuff. So 7 is going to be my lucky number. And so I'm going to take this object here, and let's zoom down here. I'm holding the control key down, and I'm going to drag out 7 copies of this. It don't matter where you drag them out. I'm just going to drag out 7 copies of my group of 5. Okay. All right. Cool. Now I'm going to go ahead and select all 7 of them. Remember, if I select something first and then I select something last, that last object is going to be my alignment object, and I can come in here and align to center, and then I can space inside that last vector horizontally this time to create my equal spacing, right? And then I got a nice space between every 5 and all that, right? And now on here, my 7 holes, my 7 sets of holes here, I can just hold down my control key and once again grab it right in the middle, and I can snap it up, oops, to the center of this rectangle, and then keep that control key down, and I can snap it up to the, and I missed that one by a long shot. Let's let go of the control key and snap it to that line. And so now I have my 3 rows of 7. That's 105 holes. I'm 15 short. Okay. So Laney, you got 15 short. You got 2 curves. You divide 15 by 2, it's 7.5. Can't put half a hole there, right? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 8 on one side and 7 on the other, right? 8 and 7, 15, right? Cool. And then that'll give me my 120 holes from start to finish, right? Doesn't seem too complicated, hopefully. It probably sounds or looks complicated, but it's really not. We just need, whatever we do, I want my groups of 5. I want a nice little space in between them, kind of divide, because I'm going to be, putting like little scores, 5, 10, 15, 20 little scores. I'm going to V-carve in there and things like that. And I might even draw a line, between each one and do a little V-groove line to separate those. Who knows? But all we need to do is, from start to finish, we need to end up with 120 holes. So by doing it this way, I get the spacing that I want. I'm at 105, and now I can create my 8 and my 7, give me my 120, and I'm good to go. Now, this is where the group of 3 is going to come in handy. So we're going to take our group of 3 here. Now, the center of the circle is going to start. So if we go in here and I hit N on my letter N, as in Nancy, or node editing. If I hit the letter N, it'll show me where my 2 points are right here, right? My 2 points. And looking at my spacing and everything here, when I hit the escape key out of that node editing, but when I do this group of 7 or group of 8, it's going to start the center of those circles right on that line, and it's going to end the 7th one on the center of that line here. Okay? So depending on your curve and the situation, you might need to add an extra 1 or 2. I like adding an extra 2, depending on what my spacing and stuff looks like. Like if it was going to be too much. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to select these 3 circles first. I'm going to select this first arc here, and let's go into that copy along curve, and I'm just going to do a number of copies, a number of 7, and I'm going to click copy. So you can see here that the first copy started here, then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Okay, and the spacing, turning that corner is good spacing. I kind of like that and everything. I want it spread out a bit on those arcs. But sometimes it might not fall the way you want, or the spacing between this group of 5 and this next group right here of 7, the spacing in there might not be equal to this, whatever the case may be. Visually looks about the same, but it's not. It's a little different. So if I took a rectangle and kind of drew a rectangle and snapped it to my edges here, it kind of gives me an indication of my spacing. If I took that rectangle and I drug it over and snapped it to here, you can see that I'm off. I don't have that equal spacing, and it's going to be the same up here as well. Let me get back on the screen here. It's going to be the same up here as well. If I snap to there, my rectangle, that spacing, I don't have it. So what would give me that spacing? Do I add an extra couple and it might increase my spacing a little, but would it look better? Let's find out. So I'm going to hit undo on that, and let's go ahead and select this, and I'm going to add 2 to the 7 that I need, right? So let's select the arc, and I'm going to add a total of 9 here. I want 9 copies. I'm going to come across here, and then I can, delete this one and this one, and now it's increased my spacing a little bit, right? My spacing a little bit. It's increased it a little bit, but I'm kind of coming into this corner, so my holes are a little bit tighter around the corner, and I'm coming into that corner and stuff, and so this spacing might not be that big of a deal. Whatever is going to give me kind of the spacing I want. Now, one of the things that I could do is I could take on my arc here, and let's go back into node editing. I'm going to hit the letter N on the keyboard, and the arc starts here, right? So that's kind of the start of that line. And if I just need a little bit more spacing, I could simply cut the vector right there. And I want to make sure I cut it at the same height up here. So I'm going to use a guideline for those of you that don't know much about guidelines or whatever, I'm going to drag a guideline from the ruler where I just cut that vector. Okay, so that way when I go into node editing, again hitting the letter N on the keyboard, I can cut the vector there, and then I can just, you know, delete that little line here and here. And now when I don't need to add 2 extra or anything like that. If let me get rid of these circles here. If I grab my row and I grab the new arc, the shorter arc, if you will, and go into my copy tool and go with my copy of 7, copy that along, and now notice that, you know, I'm, you know, got my spacing here that's going to be pretty well on. Now, the question may be, you know, why did that create these, you know, crooked? No, it's kind of starting that turn in the corner, right? I could straighten that out. It's not a big deal to straighten that out. If I wanted to, I could select this group and it's already, you know, pivoting on the center. I could come in here and I could rotate and straighten that out on my rectangle if I wanted to, you know, or whatever the case may be. However, you know, whatever tickles my fancy, right? And it's actually going to be, let me zoom in, and it'll be a smaller, right about there. And I could do that if I think, you know, visually that looks better to me, or whatever the case may be. Or these rectangles aren't going to be there, right? They're going to be gone in the racetrack. So visually, I can't really tell, you know. But if I, you know, if it was something, if I was like, oh, that's going to drive me nuts if those two aren't straight or whatever the case may be, no big deal. I can just come in here and, you know, straighten them up, right, on my guideline, whatever the case may be. However you want to do. That's up to you. That's just that's semantics. That's just small little details that could be important to you or not important to you. All right, so now we've got we've added 7 more rows to that 105. So now we're at 112. And let's go ahead and let's take our circles over here. You don't have to move the circles. You could have left them over there, but I want to drag them over here so we can kind of visually zoom in for you guys. And on here, since I, you know, kind of did it on this side, I want to kind of somewhat stay consistent on my other side, right? With spacing and stuff, you know, if I'm going to do it right. And so let me come in here, snap this back down here. Let me get rid of these. I did a Control Z on the keyboard and I didn't want to go back that far. Okay. So I could take, and let's take this guideline. I don't need guidelines on my board, so let's take this guideline and drag it over here. And I could be, you know, I could say, okay, I want to be specific and consistent and everything, or I could just kind of drag the guideline out to whatever I think it would be. Well, I know my rectangle, remember my rectangle went right to the edge of this line. My circles are 1/8 of an inch. So if I right click on this line here, I get my properties, and I can go relative guide, make a relative guide, and I could go negative 0.0625. And when I create that guide, it'll create a guideline here. Then I can delete this one. It'll create a guideline there where I need to cut my vectors, right? Guidelines are great for helping you lay out things. And you can grab guidelines from your top ruler. You can grab multiple guidelines, drag them down for your layout. From your left ruler, you can drag and lay out. You can right click. You can change the angle of your guidelines. You can change the positioning of them, all kinds of things, and they're great for layout for sure. All right, let's get rid of those guidelines, delete all guides. All right, and let's do that again. Let's snap here, right click, make a relative guide, negative 1/16 of an inch away, and now I know where to cut my vectors, right? So let's go into node editing. And right on this guideline, I'm going to right click and cut the vector there. Up here, I'm going to, let's select that. Right click and cut the vector there. Get out of node editing mode. I don't need these two little vectors here. And I don't need that guideline anymore. I'm done with it. So now I could take this group of circles, select it, select this here, and I need 8 on this side. Okay, I need 8 more rows, so I'm going to copy along 8 copies and spread that out. Right? Cool beans. Once again, if it was bugging me, I'm going to leave this angled and all, but if it was bugging me, I could rotate and straighten that up, you know, whatever the case may be, right? But that's, again, you know, that's up to you. Okay, all that stuff. I'm actually going to keep it a natural curve. It's starting to curve into there. So, and I should have kept this one a natural curve, but I've already straightened it out, so I'm not going to sit there and tweak it or play with it or any of that stuff. All right. So stopping here, now we've got our raceway of 120 holes. We got our cool little offset raceway lines in between. These center lines here, I'm going to keep them for layout purposes. I'm not going to just sit there and delete them. I'm going to select all my little arcs in that middle line, and I'm just going to move it to another layer, and I'm going to turn that layer off, right? So I will come in here and I'll just, you know, this is my raceway layout. Now, layout line. I'm going to turn the visibility off and just, you know, that way it's gone. Right? So I've got my track here. Now, once I've done that, you know, I don't need these 3 holes anymore, but we're not quite done yet because I want to have a starting line and a finishing line. Okay, I want to have a starting line and a finishing line. So what I want to do is I snapped it to that first row there, my little group, and I'm just using my left arrow key and I'm kind of moving it out here. And I'm going to have a starting line there, and I'll draw a line, maybe type the word, or, you know, V-carve the word start, you know, somewhere in here. So I want to give myself a little bit of room for the starting line. And then over here, there's only one winner, right? There's only one winner. So I'm going to hold down my control key and drag a copy over here. Okay. And so I'm going to come here and I'm going to just, again, push this out. I'm using the right arrow key just to push this out, you know, wherever it's going to go. But now I'm going to ungroup this and I'm going to delete these 2 circles. There's only one winner, right? One person's going to get to that spot, you know. And then, you know, I'll move this left or right depending on the spacing that I want based on where I'm going to put my finish line and maybe the word finish and all that stuff. So, at this point here, we've kind of got our whole layouts and everything, and I want to do some additional, you know, some additional drawing and stuff. But so far, right, you guys, hopefully you didn't get lost, or you understood that everything kind of worked out, or it made somewhat sense to you when it comes to layout. Now you could have an oval cribbage board, you could have, you know, an S-shaped cribbage board, you could have a square shape, you could have whatever, you could have a little racetrack, you know, and all that stuff. You could have a little figure 8, whatever, right? Figure out, basically step back and look at and say, okay, what's going to be the best way for me to lay out these holes in a timely manner, have the spacing that I want, and ultimately end up with my 120 holes, right? And for me, because of this particular design, cutting those vectors and laying out those rectangles and using the spacing tool in the alignment was the perfect ideal solution. Okay. All right. Right. And so, right. Good. Okay. All right. Let's go into here. Okay. Now, let's go ahead, since I'm here and all, let's take our line tool, and I'm going to snap a line from the center of this circle here to the center of this circle and spacebar. And this is, I'm now going to use, I select it, now I'm going to use my arrow key on my keyboard to kind of move. Now, I don't want my line longer than the 3 holes. You know, I don't want it really even with the 3 holes. I just want some kind of divider line, right? So going from center to center on those 3 holes kind of was ideal, you know, or is kind of going to be an ideal line for me, right? And so what I'm going to do is, you know, this is going to be the kind of the starting line. And then I'm going to add the word start, right? So let's go ahead and I'm going to go all capitals, S-T-A-R-T. And whatever font you want to use, go ahead and use it. And I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to hit the number 0 key on my keyboard twice to rotate it 90 degrees. And I'll go ahead and kind of snap it to the center of that line. Bring it up here. And then I'm going to hold my shift key down and grab one of these corner boxes so it keeps it centered, and I can size it down to whatever size I want. Right? Now if I zoom in, I can have more control on that size and things like this. All right, and then from there I can position it on my start line. Okay, cool. All right, so that's going to be my starting line. Let's go ahead and create a finish line over here. Since I already have the length of line that I want, I'm just going to again select it, double click on it to put it in transform mode, and that control key is a copy key, right? So control and drag a copy of that line up here. Now I want it aligned, right? So, and I know this one is centered with these, so I'm just going to grab the center of that and snap it right to the center of that circle, and then I'm going to use my left arrow key, kind of get it into position where I want it to be. And let's go ahead and put some more text in here, and this will be our finish line. And since the raceway is going this way, I'm going to hit the number 0 key again, and I'm going to have finishing facing kind of the way the game players are playing. And I'm going to grab the center of this and snap it either to the center of my line or the center of my circle. I don't care, either one. They're both the same. And then I'm going to back it up. Again, hold that shift key. Size it down to, you know, what looks good. And then I'll move it, kind of giving my spacing. And I don't need to really be that far away with everything, so I'm going to grab all 3 of these and just hit that left arrow key and kind of bring it in a bit. Right? Cool. Let's bring this in just a little bit. I'll select these 3, hit that right arrow key, and just bump it in just a little bit. And there we go. So now I have my start and my finish. Okay? All right, all right, all right. Cool. Now, let me see what Tennessee wood signs. May be easier to use the mirror function, copy about center. The mirror function, copy about center. You mean flip about the job center? Like if my board was centered here, you know, create this row and flip it about the center to create this row up here. Is that what you're referring to, Tennessee? Or what have you? What exactly, which part, kind of be a little bit more specific, Tennessee, because I'm sure everybody else would be curious too. Which one, what part of it would be easier? Yeah, to get the same spot up top. Okay. Are you referring to the line or the holes or the... Help me out one more time, because I really, this is important. tendency. Lines, holes, the text. Which one were you referring to? Which one would be better to copy on center, to flip about center to get the same alignment? Let me know. One of those. It's one of those three you were talking about. Holes, line, or the text. You know. Cool. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to approach those things and stuff. And hey, Blue Knight, how you doing, bud? Okay, save and save often, right? Yeah, so the cribbage board is already saved, so I just have to go over here and hit save the current file, right? That little red, white, and blue floppy disk to save. Group the entire start parts. Okay, so my start parts here, he's saying group the entire start parts, flip it about job center, and then move it down the line, and then change start to finish, I'm assuming. Right? Cool. Yeah. So group, flip about job center, go right down the row to where you want to put finish, change start to finish, and you get there. Absolutely. Right? Right. Nice going. Now, you could also take this, and he's probably saying, hey, flip it about center horizontally and move up, move it up, and get it aligned center there, and that way you have the same distance from your starting point to your finish point, right? So he's probably saying that as well. And basically what that would look like if I took these three objects, grouped them together, mirror, flip about center, create a mirror copy, of course, flip horizontally, that'll flip that here, and then I'll just use the up arrow key on this. Let's close this tool. And, I can use that up arrow key and pretty much kind of get that same spacing. Of course, I would then, want to, I'm going to hold my alternate key down. My alternate key, you guys never heard me talk about the alternate key. But if I hold my alternate key down when I'm moving this, I can only move it horizontally or vertically, right? No matter where I put my mouse, if my mouse is way over here or way over here, it's still going to only go horizontally on my line or vertically on my line. And so I can, snap my mouse. I can move horizontally here, and I can snap my mouse to the center there, get it aligned to center in that spacing. And then I could, change the word finish to start, mirror that, all that good stuff, right? So that would be a way to get that equal spacing and everything. Cool. Let's delete that. Very, very good. Okay. Now, let's ungroup this. Now on my line here, my question to myself is, do I want to create, a center line in between these parts? Do I want to create a center line in between these parts in the spacing and everything, and have that line, do it like a little line with the score, like 10 points, 5 points, 5, 10, 15, all that stuff? Or do I want to just put text in there, 5, 10, 15? It just kind of depends on what you normally do. Normally, I have a number, a score number, and then I have 2 dashes on the side of it, right? So, this would get, cut at some point, and there'd be a number there. But, I want to, make sure that I get the correct amount of lines, my spacing and stuff, my lines where they're going to go. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take my guideline here, okay, and my spacing, I'm just going to take a quick measurement horizontally. I'm going to measure from this last circle in this group to the first circle in this group, center to center, and it's 0.534. Okie dokie. And I'm going to take this line here and I'll snap it to the center there, and then I'm going to move it relative to its position. I'm going to move it to the right. It's a positive number, 0.534 divided by 2 equals, and I'm going to click apply, That way I'm centered there, right? And once I have that one laid out, then what I'm going to do is, once I have that one laid out and everything, I can go ahead and just create my layout lines and just snap, right? So now that I know where that is, I'm going to hold my control key down, and my alternate key. So when I move this, it gives me that dotted line up here, and I'm going to snap it to the center there, let go. And then I'm going to hold my control key down and my alternate key, snap to the center there. So that way, those three lines that I was not centered there, bear with me a second. Snap to there. Okay. So that way, you know, I've got my three lines here. Okay. And if I want to make sure that I'm exactly dead center, I could take a guideline and snap it to the center of that circle. Click on this, and you can see I'm a little off, right? So then I can just snap that up there. Get that in place, right? This one's good because I have a center line to work off of, but this one I didn't. So the guidelines, man, they're great. They're great. All right, I've got these three holes here, okay, or these three lines, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my guideline. And remember, this guideline here, I'm going to move it to here. Okay. Basically, I don't really need to do that one. I've already done that one. Let's go over to this one. Snap to there. And I'm going to move this, right click on it. Okay, relative to its position. That 0.534, I think it was 534. I already forgot my number. Bear with me a second. 534, I think it was. Let me take a quick measurement. Never hurts. It only takes a second. Yeah, 534. I'm just going to, on that guideline, right click and relative. 0.534 divided by 2 equals. Okay, and I'm going to create that guide, that place there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from here to the center of this to the next position, right? So if let's bear with me a second. This will make sense in a minute. Relative. Okay. I'm going to measure from here to here just to give me a number, right? That's my distance between those two lines. Okay? 19501. 1.9501. All right, on this guideline here, I'm going to right click on it and create a relative guide. 1.9501 inches away. I'm going to make that a relative. 1.9501. And I want 1, 2, 3, 4 copies. So I'm going to create 4 copies and create those guides. Okay, across. And this one can go away. All right, so now I've got kind of my spacing there. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 3 circles here, or 3 lines. I'm going to group them together. Come in here. I'm going to grab it right in the center. Hold down my control key, and I'm going to snap to here, let go, hold my control key, snap to here, let go, hold my control key, snap to here, hold my control key, snap to here, here, and here. Okay, and then I can hide those guidelines, and now I have my dividing lines. Right? Simple enough, doesn't take very long. There's probably another way that you could do it, or whatever the case may be, but that's how I do it, right? So it doesn't take very long to do that. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to ungroup this group here, and I don't necessarily need that line there, right? Okay. And yeah, so I don't need this measurement here anymore, all that stuff. So measuring guidelines, you know, all those things really help with quick layout and all that stuff and everything. So now I've got my racetrack laid out, but I do want to add some text, right? I do want to add some text. So let's go ahead and some like 5, 10, 15, 20, 20, you know, all that stuff and all that wonderful stuff. Now, I did miss one line. So what I'm going to do is very quickly, I missed my one set of lines right here. So what I'm going to do very quickly is snap a guideline to there, right click, make a relative guide, negative this time, negative 19501. Create that relative guide. So it's here. I'm going to select my 3 lines, hold down my control key, grab it in the center, snap it over here. All right, I can go ahead and turn those guidelines off again. I'll ungroup these. Letter U for ungroup, or you can use the ungroup button right here under the first row, 5th icon, ungroup. And again, I don't need that line at the start, right? So, all right. So I've got all my lines and all that wonderful stuff there. It doesn't take very long to get that. All right, cool. Okay, so now I want to add some text. I want to add some numbers and everything and all that wonderful jazz. So let's go open up our text here and click over here. I'm going to go 5, enter, 10, enter, 15, enter, 20, enter, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, oops, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 67. Yeah, okay. I knew I was heading to 120. I just want to make sure. 80, enter, 85, enter, 90, enter, 95, enter, 100, enter, almost there, 105, 110, 115, and 120. Okay, cool. Now what I've just done is I've created a text block. Okay, so I've got a text block here of the numbers and all. Now, before we go changing any of this text block, the first thing I want to do is I want to kind of bold them up, and I may want to change my font because they're going to be much smaller than they are, you know, right now. They're going to probably be about, oops, not 25 inches, about a 1/4 inch tall. I'm going to drag them over here just for a second so I can do a little comparison. Let's go 0.1875. It's going to be, it'll be turned sideways, right? So, all right, 3/16 is going to be my number height. Okay, so I got this text block here, and now what I want to do is, you know, make sure you got the right font and all the stuff you want to use. I'm going to right click and break that text block into text lines. So now each of these are individual lines of text. Okay, each of these are individual lines of text. And all I'm going to do is, like my 5 points here, I'm going to grab it right in the center and snap it to the center of that line. The 10, I'm going to grab it in the center and snap it to the center of that line. Now, before I move to the next one, I'm going to hit the number 0 key twice. Okay. Now this line here, it's going to get divided, so it'll be the number and there'll be 2 lines. There's not going to be a line going through the middle of it. Bear with me, there's a method to the madness. I should have split my lines before I made all the copies of them, but we'll do that in a minute. We'll come back. But again, like with my 10, I'm going to, when I copy it over, I'm just going to hit the number 0 key twice. That's clockwise rotation. So I'm literally just, I'm going to double click on the object, grab it in the center, snap to the center of my line, hit the 0 key twice. Grab the next one, grab it, snap to the center of the line, hit the 0 key twice. And it's just rinse and repeat till you get all the way through all your numbers, all the way around, 0 key twice, right? So that way, you're just dropping and placing. I wish there was a, another way that I could have them follow the lines around and be centered and equal and everything. I haven't found a really good way to do that other than this. All right, so this time I'm going to hit the number 9 key, right? Because my numbers are facing this way now, so I need to face that way. So the number 9 key when I get on the second row here. So snap number 9 key twice, so they're facing the right way, in the direction the racetrack is running. 9 key twice. So 9 and 0. 9 is a counterclockwise rotation. 0 is a clockwise rotation. So I want to be able to rotate clockwise. And so I'm just literally just working my way around. Snap 9, right? It doesn't take long. It's only just a few minutes. And make sure you grab it at the center of your number, right? So you can snap to the center of that line. And why are you not snapping to the center of that line? There we go. And hit that number 9 key twice. Okay. It doesn't take very long. It only takes just a few minutes to get it, where you want it, and we're halfway home. All right. Now I'm gonna alternate back to the number 0 key, right? Because I'm going clockwise this time on that rotation, and snap to the center of that line, and 0 key twice. We're going clockwise rotation. All right, 0 key twice. 0 key twice. This is why smart snapping and geometry snapping is on. Now, if you're smart snapping and geometry snapping, I believe that came out in either 9.5 or 10 on the Vectric software. But those snapping, that smart snapping and all is a champ. In older versions of the software, it's a little bit more tedious, but you can still, a center, that's why we have our lines, the center point of that line and the center point of an object, you can still get it to snap to it. Now I'm getting into 3-digit numbers, right? So my 3-digit numbers, we'll come back and revisit them in just a second here. Let me get these last one in here. Okay. Now, I don't need the 120 on this because 120 is you won the game, right? So 120, you're gonna win the game. All right, so I don't need the 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 100, 5, 10, 15. Bear with me a second. I know I have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Oops. $115. I'm missing some numbers there. Right, the curves do not have 5. They have 7 and 8. Thank you. I was like, wait a minute, I'm missing some numbers here. So that is going to change my number scheme. I was freaking out. I was like, wait a minute, I'm missing some numbers here. I was like, Where's the other 5? So, thank you again, Wayne, Bruce, everybody. Thanks everybody for telling me. Okay, so let's quickly. All right. There's always one spot, in a class. There's always one spot where I'm going to screw up, right? And I thought it was going smooth, right? We were just rocking along, but one spot where we're screwed up. Okay, so we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So up to 35, we're good. So I can grab up to 35, and we can change that. And then from there, all the numbers are going to be different, right? So I've got to add 7 to my next number. So I'm going to go in here and let's come in here. Now, I am pretty darn good at math, but I am going to cheat for these next set of numbers that I'm going to create. So let's go back into our text box here and everything. And I'm going to cheat with the calculator, and all 42 is going to be my next number because I'm adding 7 to that 35, and then 47, so on and so forth. But I am going to use the calculator on some of this. So let's start this again. So and for those of you, 35, right, plus 7 equals 42, right? That's the next number. And then after that, we're gonna, we're gonna add 5, 47 and 52, and then so on and so forth. Okay, but every once in a while, I might have to cheat on the calendar or the calculator and stuff to get the numbers right. Okay, all right. So let's go our 42, 47, 52. Now I gotta, let me see here. If I gotta count how many, because this is gonna be the 42, 47, 52, 57, 62, 67, 72, 77. So when I get to 77, I gotta add 8. I gotta add 8. Okie dokie. All right, so 52, 57, 62, 67, 72, 77. Right, did I say 77? 42, 47, 52, 57, 62, 67, 72, 77. So it's 77. Yep, now I got to add 8, right? And so I believe that is going to be 84. Let me I got to do some math here. It's 77 plus 8 is 85. Okay. 85. And the great thing about that, from 77 to 85, now I can go back to my the rest of my numbers, which would be 85, 90, 95, 100, 105, 10. 120. Right? Anybody disagree with that? All right. Let's go ahead and so we got our numbers here. All right. Now I don't know why when I backed everything off, why I backed everything off. I could have left those 35 there, right? I could have and let me make that bold. I want that to make sure that's bold. And 0.1875 is good. All right, so let's do this again. Let's right click and break that text block into numbers, and very quickly grab it from the center, snap, and I'm hitting the 0 key, you know, for that clockwise rotation. I don't know why I moved the first 35 off of there. I could have just left that and just fixed the rest, but I got nervous. I got nervous, man. I got nervous. Okay, missed that whole line right there. So we want to snap to the center. Number 0 key twice. 30. Come on, 30. Snap. It's very important where you grab that number. Grab it in the center. That way you can snap to the center of that line. Okay, and 35. Okay, now we're going to do a number 9 key rotation, the number 9 keyboard shortcut for the clockwise rotation. We'll start with our 42. Snap and number 9 key rotation. Work our way down. Okay, so it doesn't take very long. We'll get it laid out. And then we'll start kind of doing a little bit of toolpathing and see what we got going on. See if there's any embellishments or anything we want to add to this. And all that stuff. So let's get through this really quickly. Get these on here. Oh, make sure I go back and rotate this number 62 here. There we go. I'm gonna miss that one. I didn't grab it in the center. Snap to the center of that line and that number 9 key. Now, when it comes to the 3-digit numbers, they're a little bit bigger, right? So I'll go in and size them appropriately here in a moment. Okay, now we're going to go back to the number 0 key, right? For that clockwise rotation. So snap 0 key twice. And, you know, some of you might make cribbage boards all the time. And you're like, oh no, Laney, I got a much better way of doing this. Hey, if you do, share it. Share it with the group. For sure. I'll take it. Let me drag these up here so I'm not having to make so many mouse movements and stuff. I want to be able to zoom in before you guys and girls get dizzy. Alright, so we want to grab it on the center and snap. Clockwise rotation. I got to resize the 3-digit numbers. I'll size them down a bit. I want them to fall within the and I don't need the 120. Okay, 120 is the finish line, so I don't need that. I want them to fall in between the lines, and you got to remember, you got to think about your V groove, right? You don't want them too close to the line because your V bit's going to be cutting right on the center of that line. I usually do about a 1/16 of an inch, you know, depending. But that V bit's going to be coming in depending on your V bit, right? You know, it's going to be coming in on the center of that line, so we don't want to be cutting our numbers and all right in half. So one of the things that we've got to be mindful of. Let me see where my. I'm going to ungroup this. I missed that whole center line by a lot. Snap. All right, now. There we go. You know, when that V-bit comes and cuts, we don't want to cut into our numbers, right? So make sure you got it sized. This is where you might decide, oh, you know what? I want to space my holes more. You know, I want a little bit more spacing on those holes. So, because I am going to do groove lines, or you don't do groove lines, right? You just do no raceway lines to separate the lanes, and you just do your individual lines, whatever the case may be, right? You could do, you know, kind of a split line here like I'm talking about doing, or no line, right? You know, just the number, right? You know, so you know, I could have, you know, no line there and just have my score, you know, at that point, whatever the case may be. But what I'm, you know, my V groove here is just for detail, right? It's going to be very shallow. It might not even be a 16th. It could be a 32nd, but just it's going to be detail. Okay. Check 95. Yes, 95. I had to check 95. It was not centered properly and everything. So 95 was not snapped to the center properly. So thanks for pointing that out, Chris, and everything. So, you know, a lot of people, you know, like Wayne, or not a lot of people, but Wayne, he was like, you know, hey, no line, you know, just the number. It kind of depends on, you know, what you want to do. Or you could do a, let me ungroup these. And let me come in here and node edit. Cut the vector and pull this up to here, pull this down to here, and you could kind of do a split line kind of thing where you have the little line coming out and all. That's just a, you know, it's kind of a design decision, you know, based on what you want to do. Now, on the, if I was planning on doing kind of the split line. So what I'm going to do, so I don't have to sit there and split all these lines, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of node editing mode, and I'm going to select these two objects and group them together, right? These two splits here. And I can pretty much go through and delete these groups. Remember, I had them all grouped, right? I can delete these groups, which I should have done the split before I made all my copies and everything, guys. I'm kind of stepping back. You know, I'm going backwards to go forward, and that's not good designing and things and all. So I'm kind of stepping back to go forward. Okay, and on here, I'm going to come in and hold down my control key and drag this line and snap it to the center of the number, right? Because the center of the number, snap to the center of the number there, Hoss. There we go. And hold down my control key, grab it in that center, and snap to the center of that number, right? Because the center, we line everything up. And now I can take these three groups, hold down the shift key, select all three of these groups, right? And you can group them together, keep them ungrouped, whatever the case you may be. But now we have a center point here that I can hold down my control key, and I can, you know, snap to my, damn it, I missed it again. I can snap to the, damn, I missed it again. What's going on with my smart snapping there, ladies and gents? Oh, I missed that. Hold on a second. I'm missing my number there. So, hold my shift key and that's the center of my group. I want to see how far I'm off. Bear with me just 1 second on my snapping. I was way off. I was way off. Okay. Damned if I wasn't off again. Come on now. The important thing is, why are you off? Oh, I was sitting there, I'm like, what am I fighting against? I'm fighting because I grouped those darn bars together. Ungroup them because all three of those were off a little bit. Don't make sure you're not off before you group anything. Lord have mercy. Let me come back in here. Let me snap that to there. Damn, I'm fighting this thing all left and right here. Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, wait a minute. All right. I'm gonna use guidelines. Dog that thing. Don't you argue with me today. Okay. What I'm looking at is my line length. Why is my line off? Don't copy a bad line, ladies and gentlemen. That would be ridiculous. Don't copy a bad line. Okay, let's get undo. Okay. Make sure my copy. I undid everything just now. One more time. Control Z. Okay. So first off, let me make sure I'm centered. Okay. My number 90 was off a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. My number 90 was off. All right. So that's my group. Group that together. All right, I got to redraw these lines. That's why everything was off, because I didn't have the lines snapped to the center on the first one, my copy, and I drew it wrong, so I got to fix it, right, before I go copy it, because everything's going to throw everything else off. So let me go into node editing and fix it. Fix it. Now, how now, brown cow? I mean, one little thing like that could just throw you off. It was going smooth. All right, let's group that together. Now I can fight it, right? And land right where I need to land. All right, let me turn the guidelines off. Okay. I don't need the guidelines now that I have a correct number. Okay, control key. Snap, control key. I'm just gonna kind of snap in here. Control key. Snap. And I gotta change the 100, 105, 10, 15. So let me just do this really quickly. Let me get these snapped into place. You little booger. Okay, now I'm fighting with 47. Hold on a minute. 47 is centered. There we go. fighting with 52. There we go. Get it, get it, get it. Oh, man, I don't know why my snapping's not being snappy today. It was a moment ago. All right, 62 is off. No, 62 is not off. This is off. There we go. I think I'm zoomed out too far. Yeah, I'm zoomed out too far. All right, I'm off on 72. Come on now, 72, 72. Do I hear 72? Do I hear 72? There we go. We'll get past this and move on. Some people like lines, some people don't like lines. Damn, I'm off on 72. Okay. Okay, so I got lines there. I've got, oh, I missed 72. Missed 72 again. Bear with me. Lord of mercy, you guys are you're seeing it firsthand how you can screw up. Don't screw up. Okay. Let's get rid of that 35. It doesn't belong there. 42 is off by a long shot. It would help if I move the actual line. There we go. Okay, everything else looks good. I got to get, we're getting there. We only have 5 more to go. Oh, hold your control key down, not your shift key there, Laney boy. Man, why am I not snapping? Snap, snap, snap. It would snap easier if it wasn't a font, but that's okay. Okay, we're almost there. I keep saying that. Give me that crosshair, boy. I have to throw another guideline up if this keeps. If I keep. There we go. Finally. Your little mouse should turn when we are at the center of an object. We should have that little bullseye there, but that's not right. So let me find out why. There we go. Nope, that's still not right. Okay, got to turn my guideline back on. That's wrong. So what's wrong? Is my guideline wrong or my guideline's wrong? Damn guideline's wrong, Laney. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, this is a waste of time for y'all. We can get past this. We only have freaking 6 more lines to do. Is my 30 off? My 30's off. Come on, man. 30, you're screwing me up here. Okay. My 30 was off. I'm going to check my numbers before I go wasting time. That one's on. That one's good. That one's good. Okay. Lord have mercy. All right. So let's copy and let's snap that to there. Missed it again by a mile. Well, not a mile, but close enough. All right, hold that control key down. Not your shift key. Hold that control key down. See, I'm a little off again. Lord have mercy. Okay. We can't get hung up on this. So hold down the control key. The files you guys will get will be, you know, good. You won't have to worry about being off a little bit. Okay, let's turn those guidelines off. Make sure that I'm not overshooting it. I overshot this. Okay, we'll go back and check out those, and that's way off. Let's actually get into the center of the number there, and I got my back up. Okay, so you can have lines, no lines, all that stuff. Holy cow. Can you use the scissor tool? Could you use the scissor tool to cut the lines to the numbers? Or cut the lines to the lines? Yeah, could I use the scissor tool when I was all the way back there and stuff? Probably could have, you know. Thanks, Wayne, for bringing it up late. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I don't know, Wayne. Honestly, you know, what Wayne's asking is, hey, when you had your, you know, your line there, could you use the scissor tool and, you know, trim that, you know, line to the line, right? You know, possibly. But I'm not 100% sure. Let's find out. Let's, that's a new line. That's my old line. We'll move it down here. All right, scissor tool. Let's see here. Trim right to the line. Look at that. Wayne, where were you like an hour ago, Wayne? That would have been perfect. The scissor tool would have trimmed right to the lines on those lines. What's up, man? Good call on that one. Good suggestion. Way to go, buddy. Yeah, that was a good one. Yep. So if I would have left my lines there and just scissor trimmed, it would have trimmed right to those lines. Oh, hindsight, right? You know, when you figure things out. I didn't figure it out. Wayne figured it out. So basically what Wayne, yeah, he did good. You know? Because it's a darn sight better than dealing with that mess, right? It would have trimmed right to those lines. Okay, let's get moving on here. We done wasted a whole 20 minutes on that. Okay, so let's kind of do some tool pathing. You know, I don't know if you know what other decorative elements that I would put on this you know, board and everything to add some a little bit more spice to it or something, you know, to make it a little more elegant. Could do an inlay, right? This whole, I could draw a offset around here and create a like a, let's say this was walnut. My main base here was walnut. I could do a maple inlay here and then drill my holes and do my carving and stuff in that. I could do a maple inlay and then another walnut inlay in the middle, like a little racing stripe right down the middle. I mean, you could really, really get elegant this thing, you know, elevate this thing up and increase the price on it or whatever the case may be. All right, let's go ahead and let's create a little bit of tool pathing on this. So let me get all these arch circles selected. I didn't have anything grouped. And don't need that line yet. I'm missing lines on 30 and 67. I know that. I see that, guys. I'll catch that in just a minute. 30 and 67 I'm missing lines on. I'm going to select all these circles and go ahead and group them together as one so I don't have to do this ever again. Hit the letter G on the keyboard to group. So that way when I select them, it selects them all at once. Right? I should have added these two things into that group as well. Okay, group. Okay. We're going to have a drilling tool path. This is going to be, they're going to cut 0.45 inches deep. That's kind of a standard hole depth for the cribbage boards. You can do a drilling tool path with the 1/8 inch bit, or if you have a smaller machine and you have a little flex and all that stuff, you could do a pocket tool path with a 1/16 inch bit, right? Undercut, or you know, do a pocket tool path with an undersized bit. I'm actually going to use an 1/8 inch bit. We're going to drill this. I'm going to use a little bit of pecking. Some people don't like pecking. I like pecking for a nice clean hole. And this is going to be my game hole drilling. 0.125 in mil. All right, let's calculate that up. Preview that selected tool path. Okay, there's our holes. Nice. All right. We're going to go ahead and select our numbers. And I haven't forgotten about the oh, I got a size. Dadgummit. Hold on, I got to size my 3 numbers here. Once I get one size down, okay. I'm going to look at the size here, and the height is 1369.1369, so I'm going to kind of work with that 0.1369. .1369. I'm in the size tool over there. 0.1369. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and I could also just went with the height of you know, that 2523, right? The height of my other numbers you know, that, but that'll be fine. Okay, let's select. Oops, dadgum, don't do that. So I'm just, all those circles are grouped, so I can drag, I can just drag a box to select those numbers. Hold down my shift key, drag another box. Just don't want to, I don't want the lines in my selection window. Okay. I don't want the lines in my selection window. I'm going to add the text in there as well, since it's all going to be V-cut. So that's going to be a V-carve toolpath. I'm going to hit G on my keyboard to group that text and numbers together so I can work with them easier in the future. And no flat depth, absolutely no flat depth, no clearance tool. I'm going to use a 60 degree 0.25 V-bit. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to use a 22 degree V-bit to get a little bit more definition out of those numbers. 22 degree V-bit. And get a little bit more definition out of those numbers and that text. Let's turn this into a maple board so we can see a little bit clearer. And let's turn off our view. Oh, not the colored shading. We want that. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so there's our text. Right. Now, let's look at what happened here. Very shallow. Let me see if my preview simulation quality, let's turn that up to an extremely high. And let's preview those two toolpaths again. Okay. I need a little bit more depth and definition. That it's not giving me what I want here on these smaller lines on that V-carve. So I'm going to add, even using a 22 degree V, I'm not getting what I want on those smaller text. So I'm going to add a small amount of start depth so that it pushes down a bit more. So I get some definition out of that cut, right? I want to be able to see those nice clean letters and numbers and things. On the finish, I might put a little space between the I and the N later. But other than that, I want definition. So I'm giving it a 10,007" start depth with a 22 degree V-bit. All right, cool. All right, so I grouped those numbers together, right? So now I can go ahead and select my lines and everything. And let's go ahead and really quickly, let me, the lines that I'm missing. I'm actually going to just go ahead and draw another line here, another solid line. And I'm going to move that line and snap it to there. And what other number was missing? 60. Hold the control key down. Snap a whole line there. And then I'm going to use the scissor tool like Wayne indicated. Look how easy that was, right? We should have done that like an hour ago. And boom, perfect. Okay, now that everything is grouped together, I can literally draw a selection window where I'm only selecting those lines because the circles are grouped together, the numbers are grouped together, and as long as it's not 100% in my selection window and everything, then it's not going to select them. Another way of doing that is you could separate your layers, holes on one layer, numbers on another, lines on another. Then you can use the layer menu. You can say on the layer menu, you could come down to select all layers on that vector, or all vectors on that layer, right? Or select layer vectors, whatever it's called. And it'll select them all that way as well, if you need to. Those lines there, now my two little raceways as well, those are going to be a profile cut. Profile cut. And I'm only going to cut a small amount with a 60 degree or 22 or what have you. I'm going to use a 60 to see what it looks like to begin with. I might stick with the 22 all the way through this, but I'll go with a 60 on this, and on the line, calculate. Okay. So looking at a 60, let's undo that. Let's change it to a 22 just to see what it's going to look like. I don't want it too big. I don't want it too skinny and stuff, but let's see. My 22 degree V-bit. With the 22 degree V-bit, I can go a little bit deeper. I'm going to go 0.05. Let's calculate that. Let's reset that preview. Preview these 3 items one more time. And let's go over here and answer some questions while that's calculating and cutting and all that stuff. Yeah, let's add some color to that. Getting there. All right, let's see what we got here. You are missing points on the curve. Am I missing points on the curve? That might have been earlier. Not now. Oh, that's when I was screwing up. Check 95, no line. Could you use the scissor? Yep, that was Wayne's comments. I've never played cribbage before. How about making drawers for the cards and pegs to be stored? Big Daddy Fish, watch last week. Class number 1. Did that. Hey, Suicide All Times. But yeah, we did that in version 1, right? So we're going to preview the whole thing so you can see. Okay, so now, that would be the basic top. Would I add any additional decorative elements in here to dress it up? Would I do inlay? Would I do, some things? Let me show you once again the cribbage board that was the muse to this. Let me show you the cribbage board that was the muse to this. Man, I cannot believe I spent over 20 minutes on those lines. Okay. So, you see how they've done, in this case, they did an inlay, a little bit of walnut and maple. They did an inlay, and then they kind of laser engraved this decorative design, and there's the drawers in the front and everything for the pegs. That's the box. This is kind of the muse Big Daddy Fish that we're making. But they used a little bit of laser engraving and did some little arrows showing the way the track was going, and with the lines and everything being so small, they laser engraved them in versus V carving them and stuff like that. If you have that kind of accessory and stuff, that's a cool way to go. But basically, they cut a pocket and they did an inlay. And it doesn't look like the inlay is quite flush. It looks like there's just a little bit of a raise, right? That's a cool little feature element with inlays and all, is giving it that little step. Not actually being flush in some cases, that little step, that little reveal. Especially if, in this case, they laser cut that part out. I can tell by the burnt edges on there and everything. So that dark edge really creates that highlighting line. But an inlaid track, would look nice. Basically, it'd be drawing a rectangle around an offset basically around our racetracks, closing off the two ends to create a pocket cut. to do that inlay and all kinds of things. So this is our muse here. This is kind of our muse here. And so if we take a look at our 2D view, we've got kind of the vectors started for the raceway. There's still so much that could be done to it and everything. But let's come in and turn off some layers. What other layers on? There's another one on right there, raceway. All right, so we talked about, you know, the doors, you know, the sliding doors, they're going to, you know, slide in a groove. This was kind of the side view, you know, the side view of this. Kind of a little drawer and everything. These are the vectors that create the walls. So we have our groove vector here. Let's go ahead and do a 3D view. Let's reset the preview and let's look at our toolpaths so far. I've got to go through and organize all these toolpaths for you guys and girls. So everything, so everything looks right and all that good stuff. There's a few toolpaths that don't belong. All right, let's preview this visible toolpath here. This visible toolpath is the toolpath that is going to cut the dados and grooves that our walls are going to fit into. And that our walls are going to fit into. Let's turn off this global fill color here. That our walls are going to fit into to create the opening for the drawer. And then the opening where the cards can go, or a little storage or what have you. The doors will slide in this groove here. Though the drawer, when it's closed, these walls will go all the way to the end, and I may even, no, I want that reveal, so that's why we did that. Let's see, if we reset this preview, we had our back pieces. Bear with me a second. Let's get those parts cut out. That's them. Preview the visible toolpath. These parts were mitered on the ends and everything. And remember, there's a pocket here. You can't see that pocket. Let me go through, and that's that pocket. I was wondering, what in the hell is that pocket? It's this one right here. Let me preview that visible toolpath. That surfacing pocket I told you guys about, that, you know, if you didn't have a bandsaw to resaw, if you didn't have you know, a planer or whatever, or you got your CNC, right, you can mill stuff. And so if I had all 3/4 inch wood and I had no way of really breaking it down to 3/8 or quarter or what have you, resawing and everything, we can go through and pocket the material down to size. And let me go back in here and turn the simulation quality down for time's sake. But let's go through here on these parts, preview those visible toolpaths. So you can pocket it down, your material down to the thickness that you want. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do for you guys and girls is I'm going to go through and redraw this. So like I said, give me a little bit of time this afternoon. We went with 3/8 inch walls for the cabinet, right? We had our top 3/4 inch, or I'm sorry, 1/2 inch top, 1/2 inch bottom. And then we went with 3/8 inch walls and everything for the drawers and all. And I got to looking at that. I was kind of prototyping it out in the shop. and it's a little bulky, a little big and all. So we're going to bring those down. I'm going to redraw those grooves and stuff for you in the files that I provide. I'm going to make them 1/4 of an inch. So on these parts here, these parts are currently right now are mitered, our sidewalls and our back wall, and our two dividers where our drawer goes in between. There's right now sized at 3/8 of an inch thickness, a little bulky. So I'm gonna redraw this to 1/4 of an inch. But think about that. I went with 3/8, and when I was prototyping it, it was good. It's a 3/8 is a good box side for drawers, or like maybe a decent sized jewelry box. But for this game, 3/8 was just a little too beefy, right? And wanted to have a little bit of finesse and all. So we had our parts that kind of created that box frame, and then we had our let's see here. Had our door. Preview the visible toolpath on these. Get rid of that. We had our door pieces, our door sliding doors parts. And someone said, the finger grooves are in the wrong way, because it doesn't make it easy for opening and stuff. We can flip them and put them outside just like they did in here. So on this here, they got their finger grooves on the outside, right? For sliding and all that stuff. I had them turned inside because I wanted, when everything was closed, when that drawer was closed and that door was closed, that it created a decorative kind of almost like a ribbon to put some initials in, or something, I'm still going to play with that a little bit. But I also got to think about what's going to be the way that the drawer opens. This one has a nice little brass handle on it and all. Looks cute. But I may do something a little bit different. Probably like a little finger hole or something for the drawer to open. Because, again, this is just a Muse, even though it's a similar layout and all. We don't want to take, we want to add our own little touch to it and stuff. So I had the doors switched so that when it comes together, I can create, WDS or whatever the initials would be, or whatever the case would be. And but we'll see about that. But notice the doors here. They're about, now this door is about 3/8 of an inch thickness, 1/8 inch on the part that's going into the groove, 1/8 inch for this part here, and then another 1/8 of an inch here. But if you look at the drawer walls and the divider, let's zoom in on this. They're probably about an 1/8 inch on these drawer walls and stuff. I'm going to go 1/4 and everything on those dividers and everything. It makes it just a little bit easier for dealing with and stuff. But this was our Muse, right? This is kind of, not that one. We did that too. But, and so just look, I mean, that's an elegant looking board. There's, kudos to the folks that designed that and all. And we're just kind of going through and, coming up with a version. And then, of course, we got to make the parts for our drawers and all. So all these things we did in video 1, class 1 last week. And then this week we were covering the lid. So when it comes to the lid, it's kind of a matter of what are our options to, we could just simply color it in, right? Or whatever the case may be, and it might look good, right? Or we could really add a little touch to it. Now, let's say if we added a touch to it, right? Let's say if we added an inlay. Let's go back to our layers just really quickly. This will be our last. Let's turn off all of our layers. Turn off. Okay. Turn that off and turn on that. All right, so let's say if we were adding an offset to this or whatever. Basically, or an inlay, if we were going to inlay these parts out, what we would want to do is I'm going to select trying to figure out what's going to give me the most consistent offset. My raceway lines are going to give me the most consistent offset, so I'm going to select my lines here all the way around, my racetrack lines, these lines, and I'm going to offset them. Offset. I'm going to before I do that, I'm going to join them. Join with a straight line, join with a straight line at the two ends to kind of create a closure there for this. And then I'm going to offset that outward. The whatever, it looks good. So let's go with an 1/8 of an inch offset outward. And of course, that's not far enough, right? Can't go up far. Let's go 0.3. Okay. On my inlay, you know, I want to make sure that I have enough from the edge of my holes that when I do drill my holes, then, you know, there is some distinction and stuff and everything. So a 0.3 doesn't look bad. Let's undo that. Let's go 0.375. Might as well just round it up to a nice 3/8. Okay. And then, of course, you know, we would want to kind of extend past our finish line. So I'm going to go into node editing. I'm going to grab these two nodes right here, and I'm just going to use my right arrow key and, you know, bring that inlay out, you know, something about like that. And over here, I'm going to grab these two nodes and my left arrow key, kind of come out here. And if I was inlaying this, I'll use the inlay toolpath. Okay. I'm going to do just a straight pocket and a straight male. I could do a step if I wanted to get that reveal or whatever, but let's do our female pocket. And I'm going to probably inlay this an 1/8 of an inch. Let me see what my V carve was, because I want to make sure my V carve goes in the maple. Bear with me just a second here. My V carve grooves was 0.05. So 0.05, so an 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch inlay, be good. All right, so let's create our hole, not our hole, our pocket. One more time, Laney. Inlay, create our pocket here. Select our vector, and we're gonna go an 1/8 of an inch. We're gonna use, I'll use an 1/8 inch end mill. May even, you know, be a 1/16 or whatever, but 1/8 inch end mill will be fine. I will have small radiuses at my start and end point. I just got to be mindful of that. And offset will be fine for this because we're just pocketing it out. Okay, so we'll pocket that out. And let's give it kind of a tan color, and let's give our you know, a board kind of like a walnut look to it. Right, so imagine this. So now the holes, you got to imagine everything's going to be flush, right? We're not going to be down. It's not going to be pocketed down like that. So, you know, it would be milled down. And then we would create our, that would be our female pocket inlay. Then we would create our male part on the same part here. We would be cutting that, you know, probably out of a, you know, something maybe a little bit thicker than 1/8 of an inch. That way we can sand flush, unless you want that little reveal or what have you. So I'm going to say that, you know, I have it out of a 3/16 piece of material. And on my male, I'm going to be cutting on the outside of the line. And I'm going to choose that same 1/8 inch end mill. Use the same bit for your male and your female. Now, I didn't create an offset allowance in that female, okay? And I do. If I don't create an allowance, man, those parts are going to be tight. tight getting in there. I need to create a small allowance, meaning that I need to overcut that female just slightly for that male to fit in. Now for me, on my pocket allowance, that female pocket allowance, I go with a negative 0.002. That's my allowance, 2/1000 of an inch. Very small. And you always cut your male part first. Always cut your males first. That way when you're doing the pocket, you can test fit. You can move the router out of the way, your CNC out of the way. You can test fit and make sure you have a nice good fit. If you need to make it a little bit bigger, change your allowance. Increase that allowance a little bit. Run it again until you get that perfect fit, right? But for me, I usually start off with a negative 0.002 on my offset. If I calculate this, what that's doing is, if we go into the solid view of my cut, it is basically just oversized cutting that vector, that pocket, just by that 2/1000 of an inch, right? Just super small amount just to give me that perfect fit and everything. And then, of course, from there, then we would run our V-carve lines on our, minus these two end caps here. But we would run our V-carve lines and our numbers and all that stuff in there, right? So you could do a nice little inlay on there. You could really you could ham it up so many ways and everything. And all that. All right, guys and girls. So I'll probably create the toolpaths for an inlay for you guys and girls in this, and it could be an optional thing. I'll name them optional. I got to go in and clean up these toolpaths, really organize things. I got to change the size of the walls and stuff for the frame and the grooves and stuff to about 1/4 of an inch. Just bringing it down a little bit. It looks a little bit more refined. I am going to name those pocket cuts that are milling the material for you. I'll name those as milling pockets or what have you, so you'll know what those are, because you have a choice. You could start out with thicker material, mill it down, and then cut your parts out, right, if you don't have any other tools. Or if you had a bandsaw and you wanted to resaw your board into 1/4 inch pieces or 3/8 inch pieces. Or if you wanted to run it through a surface planer. All that's up to you. You do what you do to mill your lumber. But I am, for those of that just may only have a CNC machine and they can only go to Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever and buy a 3/4 inch board, and but they want those thinner walls, there will be pocketing toolpaths with a large diameter surfacing bit to go ahead and surface that material down before it cuts. And you got to think about it. These are small parts that are getting cut out, so double side tape, because we can't have any clamping on there because we're going to be surfacing, right? We're going to be surfacing that whole thing. What I will do is I may give you guys the opportunity to, and you can do this yourself. You can change your board size when you get the files and all, because you might want to just make it bigger, give yourself some clamping room, and then create a profile cut, right, to cut the board, the top and the bottom piece out. But you got places for clamps, and you may want to add tabs and all that stuff. I'm going to be using double side tape. That's what I'm going to set this up for. I think it'll be a little bit easier and all that stuff. So I'm going to create all these files. I'm going to give you that aggravation board, that Connect 4 board, the mill board, the mill project that we did on last Tuesday's class, and the Chinese checkerboard, right? So you're going to have a nice zip file with all these games, all these files ready to go, toolpaths and everything. Do not take a toolpath for granted. Just even though it comes from me or any one of your friends or whatever, when you bring that job into your Vectric software, go through and the toolpaths and change it. You don't have to change it much, but change the tool to the tool that's in your database. Select your tools speeds and feeds and all that stuff. Find a comparable tool. If I'm using a 1/4 inch end mill, find your 1/4 inch end mill. If I'm using an 1/8 inch end mill, if you don't have one, add one. Use your 1/8 inch end mill. If you got a surfacing tool that you use and yours might be 1 inch in diameter and mine is 1 1/4 or whatever, change it to yours. But you would never run toolpaths straight out of the gate. You'd always go in and check them, Make sure everything is cooperative with your machine and your setup and everything. Because somebody might be running on a high-end machine where they're just cranking out hundreds of inches a minute, and yours doesn't crank that fast, kind of deal. So never take a toolpath for granted and stuff. Also check where the zero is. Harvey's got a very good point there. You might be zeroing out on the top of your material or the bottom of your material because you have a waste board and you're cutting parts out and you don't want to cut into your waste board. All those things, right? So you just want to go through and you want to check all those with every project. Any CRV file or Vectric file or something that Vectric gives you or you find online or buy on Etsy, never take it in and never take it for granted that it's ready to go. Go in there and just check. Make sure, change to your tools because your tools are set for your speeds and feeds and stuff. And their tools, when they created that job, is set for their machines, feeds, and speeds. I might be slow for some of you. Some of you might like, man, I crank my 1/4-inch bit. Laney's crawling, and you might want to change faster. Your tool might be running faster and all that stuff. All those things. Never take a toolpath for granted. Never take a project for granted. You're going to have all the files, all the layout. Just going to make your minor adjustments to suit your needs. Wayne says, excellent class. Learned a different way to do the holes. What do you use for tape and glue? So you're referring to, Wayne, the painter's tape, CA glue, painter's tape method of double-side tape. I don't use that double-side tape. I use, the double-side tape I use is called Sure tape, SHURE, Sure tape. Readily available at Lowe's and all. Jay's Custom Creations, Jay's Custom Creations, he just did a video with a CNC job where he made 3 tables, a end table and a coffee table and 2 end tables. And in his video, he used his CNC to cut out the parts and stuff. And he mentioned a brand of double-side tape that he really likes. That he swears by and stuff. I'm about to order that on Amazon. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I'm going to go back to his video and get that name. I'm going to order some and give it a test out, but for the last 6 years I've used Sure tape, and I like it. I stick with it. It's available at Lowe's for me to run down and grab a roll, and all. But some people, like what Wayne is referring to, some people use a painter's tape. It could be that green frog painter's tape or blue painter's tape. And then a CA glue, a light CA glue. And you put a piece of tape on your waste board and you make sure that stuff is, it's pressed down real good. Put a piece of painter's tape on your project board. Put some CA glue on one, activator on another. Put those 2 pieces together and it'll hold very well while it carves. When it's done, peel everything off and then just peel the tape right off, right? So people like that CA glue and painter's tape method, and there's all kinds of videos on YouTube of people using them. Mark Lindsay, I think, did a video on how to do it, right? And stuff like that. So it works very well. And yeah, so other people use double-side tape and everything. So Laney, how much are you going to charge for these? They're free. You guys are going to get the files are going to be available for download in the video description. They're free. As far as the files, I'm not going to be charging like to make and sell. I'm not going to sell. I don't carve to sell anymore. I don't have enough time to do that. I teach now, right? So those who can't do teach. I'm just kidding. No, I used to sell. I used to carve constantly. My machine was running daily, and everything I carved, I sold at the markets and things like that. I don't sell anymore. Strictly now, I'm too busy with digital wood carver customers, and then of course classes with you guys and girls, and then I do digital wood carver or Spindle TV training for anybody that has Vectric software. They can subscribe and pay for training with me, and that's my gig now. So I don't carve. I carve for when I'm prototyping and things like that to make sure everything's good. But those files are going to be free. As far as how you would price your projects if you were going to price to sell them, look online, see what they're running for. I'll tell you that cribbage board that we used as the Muse is available for sale on Amazon for 65 bucks, right? So that picture that I showed you, our Muse, our kind of inspiration and all and everything, it's $65 on Amazon, right? So, all right, guys and girls, hopefully this gave you this class. You might not even care about this cribbage board, right? But hopefully maybe you learned something about guidelines. I almost forgot the name of them. Guidelines. I learned something, right? Wayne helped point out, about, drawing my line and trimming with the scissors, right? That saved me so much of time. When I had everything laid out, I could have just scissor snipped and trimmed those double lines if I was going to keep those in my project. But maybe layout, right? Ways to lay out to get your numbers and stuff. Hopefully there was something, even the alignment tool, the align to center spacing, space equal distance within an object. Hopefully something you picked up a little tip or something from here that was useful to you and your projects in the future. And with that being said, I want to thank each and every one of you for hanging out with me. If you're not a subscriber and you liked, listening to me rant and ramble for 2.5 hours, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, notification bell so you get reminded when I send out videos and stuff like this. Share this Spindle TV with anybody that you know that might be interested in CAD/CAM design. I would love that. Thanks, guys. I hit 5,000. I've got another woodworking channel where I teach woodworking, and I haven't been on that channel in many years. And I'm about to go back to it just regular woodworking aside of CNC. That's my main channel. I've got about 104,000 subscribers on there, a little more than that. This channel was new with Spindle TV last year or so, and growing, and I've hit 5,000 subscribers. So thank all of you subscribers for that. Really appreciate you guys and girls, and then those of you that come on live and hang out with me, appreciate you all. And I'd love to see this this channel grow as well. So share it, if you like it. And I'm going to do some tweaking on how classes are done to really make it more streamlined for y'all, where we're not spending so many late nights together, but where you still get a good benefit. I'm not going to cut anything out or anything like that, but I'm going to see if there's a better way, right? We'll figure out. We'll just make it a great channel one day for everybody. But until then, till next time, guys. Thanks. See you soon. Suicide all the time. Are you in quarantine from COVID? This is your human interaction? Cool, man. I'm glad I could be that for you. All right, guys and girls. Before I do sign off, I just want to see if there's anything that I missed, because last time I missed a couple last minute questions right at the end. What file format are they going to be in? Will they be in G-code? Blue Knight? No, they're going to be in Vectric file format with Toolpath. So you'll be able to open the files right up in your Vectric. Now, I did create these files in Vectric 10.5. But they're going to be available in DXF format, so you can bring in the vectors and stuff if you don't have 10.5. But all the other games, besides the mill game, all the other games, the Connect 4, cribbage, and all that stuff, those file formats, they're going to be Vectric, but I think you can even open up in 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5, 10, and all that stuff. So I try to make it to where anybody, whether you have Desktop, Pro, or Aspire, you're able to open the files. And if you can't, because you don't have that version of software, there is a DXF file of all the vectors that you can simply import into your project and create the toolpaths based on what we covered in this class. Right? Very simple. You could recreate it very quickly. All right, everybody. I don't have that software. So there'll be DXF files for you to import into whatever software you have, Blue Knight. All right, until next time, I'll see you soon.